Yo, what's up? It's your boy Negro Jones. Welcome back to the channel. You are listening to the 11th episode of the Cozy Cabin Cabarets. So, congratulations. Anyways, hope you're doing well. It's been about a week since our last chit chat, and just want to let you know that I've been having a good time with you. Make sure you like and subscribe, or at least let your friends know, so we can get into this. And without further ado, let's get into this. Now, in the last episode, we looked at the Celtic runes, and we looked at a few specific symbols. Jabot, for example, sacrifice, offerings. And what I wanted to point out was, in case you didn't notice, and I'm sure you did, was that these symbols were used on a lot of the imagery that was used for marketing the Children of the Corn. You know, of course, you've got the iconic cross in the cornfield. And, you know, in different portrayals, you have kind of the crooked cross, and then you have sometimes an upright cross. And I think the interesting caveat, or the interesting highlight that is being made here is, which one is it necessarily? You know, do you ever know? You know, and so that's kind of where I want to start with today's episode of the Cozy Cabin Cabarets, is that concept. We're going to kind of move into reality here for a minute and talk about that concept. Now, what do I mean? All right, so remember going to church. Of course, sitting in the pews, visualize with me. And I remember sitting there, you know, you're facing the front of the church, and, you know, of course, there's the preacher there, and depending on what denomination or what kind of setup arrangement you guys have, the crosses will be somewhere alongside of the podium or very distinct in the background, right? Now, the thing about that is, I remember zoning out, right? You guys ever remember zoning out? But I remember, for me, it wasn't just zoning out. I remember thinking, what end of the sacrifice are we on? You know? Because the cross stands for something, right? It's a line. It represents a line. And I remember thinking, like, especially in the first quarter of my life, right? Like 1 through 15, right? You know, you're sitting up in church, and you're thinking, oh, well, that cross represents something that's protecting us, right? And yeah, and you're supposed to, you know, be happy when you see it, and you know, and run along, children, you know, pass the tithing bowl around, you know, and all of this, and but then at some point, 15 through whatever, you start to experience the reality of life, right? You start to see that, okay, well, even Santa Claus has a budget, and God has a hedge of protection that isn't completely infinite or impenetrable, right? I mean, I haven't certainly seen, I mean, supposedly he is, but nothing he stands for is. I don't know how that's supposed to work. And we're not going against these teachings. What we're saying is, okay, you know, at what point are they practical? Because, you know, you need to kind of know the ledge, right? That's why it's called knowledge, because you know the ledge of, like, where the boundaries are, right? All right, so you hit that major plight in your life, and then at some point you decide to go on believing what you believed before, or you decide to just kind of like, okay, I'm perplexed, and, you know, you give up. And then there's that moment where, for some of us, you know, you change your thinking altogether, and you look at things kind of from the other side, is kind of the way I phrase that concept is. And at some point in my life, what I started to do was, and I think it started when I started to look into the research of, a lot of the subject matter that we cover here on the Cozy Cabin Cabarets in the previous episodes. And, you get into this stuff and you start to realize that, wow, there was a lot of stuff out here that was planned that I was just finding out about, right? And that's a big difference between, knowing things as they're happening real time and then just being informed, right? At some point, it wasn't about staying current, it was about being informed, right? And what I'm insinuating is that at some point it was bureaucracy that took over, okay? And that became less about knowledge or practicality. It became more about secrecy and all these other factors. Then once you see that, I think if you're able to see it and you're willing to see it and you accept seeing it, able, willing, and acceptance is like, and that acceptance part is probably, the primary factor. Once you're able to do that, I think you can't help but have a paradigm shift, right? I was always weary of people that told me to pray. And it's not because I didn't ever pray. It was because I think fundamentally I kind of am a universalist in the sense that I don't really believe in coincidences, mainly coincidences. And every truth or non-truth is part of a greater truth, right? And consequently a non-truth. This makes it virtually impossible to deny or even ignore the fact that the only difference between the prey of the food chain and the prey that we speak of as when we are referring to religion are only off by one letter. Those who prayed almost always lost in both senses of the meaning of the word. Now, we're not even saying that Christ isn't the man, because we know he is. I mean, every religion acknowledges him. But it's a little deeper than that. I think the perspective that we had on him for so many years was kind of like a backwards one, right? For a long time, we've been looking at it from the perspective of, oh, he died so we can have this, right? But it's like, but he died though. Like, in any other context, if your king or your leader was taken out, like that would be an act of war, or that would be, that would be something to say, okay, we need to change course of action to, right? Not to be like, oh, well, that's further proof that we're supposed to have it. Like, is that really a safe philosophy and approach to take when you have an enemy against you that has killed your leader? I mean, heavy stuff, just saying. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this segment of the Cozy Cabin Cabarets, and I really appreciate that conversation. So you know what? I might even just jump right back on and continue it so we can discuss a little more. I know that went really fast. So anyways, shout out to all my Facebook listeners, all of my YouTube people. Thank you so much for your participation in my antics. And listen, join me next time for the next episode of the Cozy Cabin Cabarets. Till next time, as always, one.